Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Clara, and today I have some Fenty beauty products to share with you guys. And I did pick up quite a few of the highlighters, so we'll be testing these out today. Now, it isn't a true first impressions because I did play with them a little bit earlier, so I have a few thoughts, but what we're gonna do, since I picked up so many, is kind of break it down into a cool look on one side of the face and a warm look on the other side of the face. So I wasn't really sure what to expect from this brand, and I went into Sephora today kind of just to check it out, and I thought maybe I'd pick up one or two items. But the thing that got me really excited about this collection is I feel like it really kind of unlocks your artistic side because of all of the fun colors that they have, and also the finishes on these highlighters were so beautiful. I'm gonna go ahead and just say that you don't really have to use all these as highlighters. You can kind of treat them like a shimmery multi-stick, so if you wanted to use it as like a shimmery blush or a shimmery eyeshadow, you could definitely do that. But most of these products do go on a little bit more intense, and then if you start to blend them out, they do kind of sheer out, so they're not necessarily as intense if you blend them out. So looking at these powder highlighter compacts, they are white, but they actually do have kind of a cool purple holographic shimmer over them. And something neat about these ones is they actually are magnetic, so they do kind of stick to each other for easy storage. I do want to point out one last thing before we jump into swatching and playing with these. I feel like most of the lighter highlighters in this range aren't really as intense, so you don't get quite as much of that shine as you do with the more pigmented highlighters. And that's the reason why I passed on a couple of the lighter shades in the powder compacts, because when I was swatching them on my hand, I didn't really feel like they gave me too much impact. And that's really good for somebody who wants like a more subtle natural highlighter, but since I just own so many highlighters, I decided to pass on a couple of those. So I didn't have the same problem with the lighter cream highlighter sticks. That was more just the powder highlighters. And one last thing I want to mention is that they are all labeled on the bottom with the color as well, so it's kind of easier to find them in your drawer. And let's just jump right in. So I'm going to do two looks, one on each side of my face, so it's going to look a little bit crazy here, but hopefully that'll be more helpful to you to see how these highlighters actually look blended out onto the skin. So let's start with Girl Next Door and Chic Phreak. And I find that these duos do have one that's slightly more subtle and one that's more intense. So this is kind of a pinky champagne color, and then this is a really beautiful peach with an intense gold shimmer. So this applies a lot more intensely on the face than it's swatched, and I'm mostly getting just the kind of champagne shine from it, and not so much of the pink that I was getting when I swatched it on my arm, because I think that's a little bit closer to my skin tone. It's a really beautiful glow, but I find that this one slightly emphasizes skin texture, which isn't really something I was experiencing with the cream highlighters. Let's go over the top with Chic Phreak. I feel a little robotic. These are very metallic, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, it just depends on your preferences. So let's take a couple of the cream ones on the other side, and I only set my face with powder in the center just in case you're wondering. You shouldn't really put cream products on top of powder. And I picked up two very similar shades. The one on the top is Trippin and the one on the bottom is Yacht Life, and I just couldn't decide between the two when I swatched them. Trippin is more of an orange gold, and then Yacht Life is more of a pink gold, and they're both super beautiful. So the way I was using this earlier, which I liked, was to kind of just go directly on the face without using a brush or anything with Trippin, and then blend this out using my fingertips. And this is a little bit more subtle and natural while still giving a really impressive glow, and it doesn't emphasize the skin texture. I was really thinking I'd be able to use the ones on this side more as a kind of like shimmery blush, but the color didn't really pay off on my skin tone. So I would say if you want to use them as a shimmery blush, to go with one of the more pigmented highlighter sticks. Something I just noticed is there's actually kind of like a foam pad on the inside of the cap. You guys know how sometimes like cream products tend to sweat a little bit? I think it's to prevent that from happening. Then I'm going to take Yacht Life and use it to add just a little bit more color on the apple of my cheek. So I'm just putting this right in the center. You can see that nice and pretty little flush of color that you get from these sticks. And I feel like this is kind of on the more natural side where like you could probably wear this to work. So this is the shade Rum, and both of these kind of darker bronzy shades were really beautiful. This is the slightly lighter of the two. I didn't really think I'd pick up any of these brown shades because I obviously can't use them as a highlighter, but lately I've really been enjoying mixing a kind of shimmery brown bronze cream product in as sort of a bronzer, mostly just on the top half of my face. It reminds me just a little bit of the new Guerlain Meteorites Baby Glow Touch Sticks. I really like the one in Golden Glow, and this just kind of reminded me of that. So I'm going to take this on the top half of my face. Woohoo, that's a really straight line, you guys. Then you'll see what I mean, how they're really intense when you first put them on, but as you start to blend them out, they get very sheer, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And that just gives a really pretty kind of bronze sheen to the skin. I'm not sure if I went a little bit heavier with it this time than I did earlier today, or if the lighting is just really weird in here, because I promise you guys in person, it actually just looks kind of like the same color as a bronzer, but for some reason on the camera my forehead looks really dark. I don't know if you guys are picking that up or if that's just the viewfinder. And something that I want to mention, though it's not really a big deal, but on the bottom of these sticks, all the labels are starting to just like peel off on their own. Next I'm going to go in with Starstruck, which I really love. The shine from this one is super intense. I'm just going to put it on my Cupid's bow. So you can see the shine from this one is really intense. The color of this one really reminds me of the Natasha Denona Cream highlighter in the shade 001. They're pretty similar. They're both kind of a, almost like a brownie pink, but they're very light. So even if you have a light skin tone, I don't think this will look too dark on you. It's just that the pink is a little bit toned down, and they have a little layer of kind of like a champagne shimmer on them. Lastly, for the cream highlighter sticks, we have Confetti, and this one was almost sold out when I went into the store to get it. I can already tell this is going to be a favorite. I don't really personally wear a lot of holographic products, but for some reason when I saw this one, it just looked really flattering and easy to wear. It's a little interesting because all of these highlighters are a little bit more subtle in direct light, and then when you turn your face, you can really see the shine. But this one, from like a direct view, it's almost like there's nothing on there. And then you turn your head and it's just like the craziest purple sparkle. It's not like a whole line of purple, but it just leaves kind of individual flecks that are, I don't know, they're so enchanting. They're really interesting to look at. And I knew I just had to find a way to wear this. I think this would make a really great highlighter, obviously, but also an eyeshadow topper for people who are a little bit less adventurous. So these are really hard to apply directly onto the eye just because of how big they are. Obviously, they're not meant for that purpose, but I did do this earlier, so I'm going to try to recreate this. And obviously, it's going to pop a lot more if you put it on top of a kind of darker eyeshadow, but I just wanted to show you guys the look on bare skin. Oh, and I do have a primer on. I think that's super important with these because they are cream. So I realize this isn't my most cohesive look, but I'm just trying to fit as many highlighters as I can onto my face, just so you guys can see. And this one you can tell interacts really interestingly with the light. It definitely looks really different depending on the view. And I think this would look really interesting paired with the more purple palettes that are coming out this month. And lastly, we have the two full pan powder highlighters. My whole face is pretty much covered in highlighter at this point. It's very white, but it does have just a hint of kind of gold in it. It's definitely not as strong of a highlighter as the Kat Von D Thunderstruck that I really like. That's actually an eyeshadow, but a lot of people use that as highlighter or an inner corner highlight. Yeah, so you could tell even though this one is a very white color, there's not necessarily that much shine on this. And just to kind of make a point, I'm going to show you actually the Kat Von D Thunderstruck eyeshadow. This one is a little bit more intense. Of course, it is supposed to be an eyeshadow rather than a highlighter. So I've gone in and put Metal Moon on this eye as well, and you can see that the whiteness of each is about the same, but this one does have more of that duochrome gold, which makes it appear just a little bit more shiny and light reflective. So lastly, we have Trophy Wife, which is kind of the star of this new launch. And this is interesting because it does go on like really intense like this, and if you blend it out, it just kind of like evaporates into golden sparkles, but not really in a bad way. It's definitely really noticeable that there are like pieces of sparkle on your face, but the way that they interact with the light is it's really interesting. That's kind of the thing with this whole collection. It's not really like all a bunch of natural colors that you can just like go put on and wear to work, but they're really fun to play with, and there definitely are some more natural colors in this collection. I feel like this is really good for when you want just a really fun makeup day or you're going for a really bold look. And I do think that this kind of gold sparkle would be really fun to wear to like a holiday party. I don't know, I just have this image in my head of showing up like all bathed in golden glitter. So you can see already that's a really intense kind of gold. I do want it just a little bit sheared out though. Whoops, that didn't work. And this is a little bit of a darker, like true gold color. So if you have lighter skin like me and you don't want a stripe of gold on your face, you might want to just use a light hand with this one. I'm also going to go in with it on the eyes because why not? So with this highlighter, if you are going for a less intense look, what I've just realized playing with this is that you really have to put it either very lightly on the skin at first with just a tiny bit of product and then build from there, or you have to make sure that your face is really powdered because it stuck to the cream products that I put underneath, and then it didn't want to move at all. It didn't really want to sheer out, which, you know, it's good that the formula kind of tries to keep the glitter in place and keep it on your face where you want it. But if you are trying to place it and then blend it out to kind of sheer it out across the cheek or wherever, you're gonna have a really hard time unless you're fully powdered in that area. For my final thoughts on this collection, I really like all of the cream sticks that I picked up. I just feel like each one, the color is so interesting to look at, and it's a win because they don't accentuate the skin texture. Now for the powder highlighters, I like them a little bit less, even though powder highlighters are normally my thing. I just felt like this one, when I swatched it in my hand in the store, it had a lot of color. I was really hoping that I could use this as a shimmery blush. Instead, it's a very intense highlight, and this powder highlighter, Metal Moon, I hate to say, but because it doesn't really have a whole lot of shimmer to it, it kind of comes across as a little bit like chalky just because it's so white. And if I'm having this problem and I have light skin, I can't even imagine how chalky this would look on somebody with tan or deep skin. Lastly, I was actually really surprised by Trophy Wife because I loved all the pictures I saw of Rihanna wearing it. Obviously, we're a little bit different skin tones, so I thought maybe I wouldn't even really be able to wear this because it is such a true gold color. But it does look really beautiful when it's sheared out. That golden sparkle would just be so fun and festive at holiday parties. I hope that you'll give this video a like if you have found it helpful, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Let me know if you have picked up any Fenty beauty products and if you are planning on picking any up, and I'll talk to you guys again really soon. Bye!